Michelle Marie McGrath.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of Unclassified Woman. Today I'm thrilled to be talking to the lovely Carren Smith, author, speaker, presenter, host, and just all-round amazing lady, really. Whether exploring entrepreneurial adventures or building a fulfilled and connected life, Carren believes that magic happens when clarity, passion, and action are engaged. Carren has helped thousands of people across the globe transform their lives and businesses through her unique approach of self-leadership. Carren's presented to more than 450,000 people in 7 years around the globe with her inspiring message. She writes for many publications and delivers up to 18 live seminars around Australia each year. In Carren's book, Soul Survivor, she shared her fight for survival through the 2002 Bali bombing, a year after the suicide of her de facto. She speaks of her own suicidal journey and the shift in focus which morphed her mindset into the powerhouse that now leads thousands to find their voice, their message, and the breakthrough distinctions of responsibility, choice, purpose, integrity, and congruence. Carren has a very philosophical approach to life, and it was interesting to hear her perspective on this very emotional topic. Enjoy. Hi, Carren. So great to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute treat.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to hearing your experience and perspective on this very often emotive topic.
Yeah, true that. And it is. I think because, children are the next generation. They're the spice of life, and I think that for people who want to have children and don't get to have them, there's a lot of emotional attachment to that, and people who do have children who never wanted them, of course, there's a lot of emotional attachment to that also. So, yeah, I think it's a very big topic.
Massive, isn't it? And so just to give us a bit of context, Carren, would you mind sharing a little bit about your background and whether you've not had a biological child due to personal choice or whether it's been a combination of circumstances?
Yeah, well, I guess when I was growing up, it never occurred to me that I wouldn't have children. I was very ambitious, though. I'm the youngest of 3 kids, and looking up to my oldest sister and my older brother and my dad, who were, incredibly entrepreneurial, it always lit my fire looking at what they were doing versus looking at, being a homemaker. And my natural path of progression as I grew older was to pursue a career more than it was to pursue a family. And a lot of my friends were traveling, and that didn't light me up either when I was younger. So I think really it's certainly from my experience, it was an innate path that I took. It wasn't a purposeful choice.
Yeah.
At the time, it was just the most natural thing for me to do was to pursue where I would feel my most valued, I guess, or my most apt to be able to contribute and make a difference.
Yeah. And I suppose that can often change as well, can't it? I think, as women, obviously our priorities can be very different, say in our 20s and then in our 30s and then in our 40s. And it's interesting how different periods in our life and different experiences can change our perspective so dramatically on what it means to be a woman, what we want, what our priorities are. And so, I feel this is a really fluid thing in a way sometimes.
I think you're right. As I got older, I felt that there was a time, about 36, I think. And there was a time where I felt, in the work that I do, I'm amongst hundreds of thousands of people every year. And I'm very deeply involved with humanity and the growth and expansion of humanity. And I felt that I was ready to contribute to my own little person, my own little, offspring of me.
Yeah.
I was ready to make my life about something other than me helping others.
Yeah.
And I tried to fall pregnant. My partner and I tried to fall pregnant, but life wasn't quite going to work out for me that way. We discovered that I had a massive tumor on the ovary when we were trying, and we went in for laparoscopy and discovered that. So I had the ovary removed. And from that point on, it was really not an option for us to fall pregnant. And to be really honest, I mean, I rode a roller coaster for about 4 years of trying of, will it be this month? Won't it be this month? Will it be this month? Won't it be that month? But I still had that sensation inside of myself as, is this really what I want?
Mm.
I was doing it and going ahead with it because I thought it was what I wanted. I didn't know it was what I wanted. And I don't know if women ever get a distinction between the two. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, you're so right. And we're just so conditioned to believe that that's often the natural trajectory, really, as a woman of, oh, well, at this point in my life, if I'm in a settled relationship, then it's almost this assumption sometimes of if you're in a long-term thing or if you get married, you're often asked them, when are you starting a family? And it just seems to be, it is that expectation often. And so it's very interesting if you actually ask mothers, well, what was your motivation for having a child? Often it's just not something they've necessarily even considered. If it's just something they've always felt they would do, it's not often, you'll get kind of a puzzled response to that because they've not really digged deep if they've just thought, well, that's just what I'll do.
mm, yeah, well, I mean, that's, I think that's quite fascinating, really.
Yeah,
My brother has two boys, and they're just the most delicious creatures. And I remember my brother saying to me, he said it would be sad for somebody to want children and then not be able to have them,
of course.
because the experience of them is, for him, it's his life, it's everything. And I often listened to that conversation with him and spoke to him about that. And I, I, I never really could relate.
Yeah.
I never really could relate because it wasn't something I knew. And um, when we discovered that we couldn't fall pregnant, I thought, well, great. Okay, so I actually haven't had to make any great decisions here for myself. The universe has done it for me. And I'm a big believer in what is to be will be.
Yeah.
And it was at that point that I just really threw myself into the work that I do and haven't looked back, not for a second. And I look at those that do have children and that do want children, and I have great respect for those people because I think that a mother, particularly when I look at my mum, there's nothing more amazing than a mother and the love and the untiringness of a mother. And I have enormous respect for those people. And, I have enormous respect for myself as well because I'm not that. I'm something else.
Yeah.
And I think that in society, we nowadays, I think, back, many, many generations ago, there may have been some judgment against those that didn't have children or that wasn't their path for whatever reason. But I mean, I don't know. I haven't felt that there's a great discord between those that do and those that don't. Certainly not in my lifetime, anyway.
Wow, okay, that's great. And then obviously it sounds as though your family and friends then are obviously much more kind of open-minded and respectful around that topic. Because it's interesting. I hear some vastly different experiences from some people, which is it's just kind of fascinating. And often I think so much of that depends on the environment that person's in, how they've been brought up, where they're living, what their friends are doing. All of these different influences. It's so varied, which is what makes everything so interesting, really. And so. Yeah, it's also, I think, really important that you mention that often you don't even necessarily realize that there's anything physically wrong until you're actively trying and then it doesn't happen and then you start to investigate. So often we're just unaware if we're not in physical pain necessarily as well.
Yeah, I guess it never occurred to me that I
Yeah.
wouldn't fall pregnant. Um, So it was never really something that I questioned. It was just a given, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, certainly in my life, but I also think it's got a lot to do with um, my stance on it,
Yeah.
and that I'm not iffy
Yeah.
about whether I should or I shouldn't have children. And I think oftentimes the very thing that we are unsure of, the world will always reflect that back to us.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
funny, isn't it? If you're struggling with something or you're in two minds about it, it's often that thing will keep coming up in different ways in different parts of your life, and you're like, oh, not this again. It's amazing how that can happen when you do feel unresolved about something, or you're trying to work through it, and then you keep getting these reminders through the people that are around you, different situations and experiences that you have. So I think that's so true. The more clarity that you have and the stronger your personal boundaries are around that as well, it really is reflected back in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, um, as I said, the world will always show you who you are and what's going on for you. So I think that I was never in doubt. I was never in question. For me, it was always about whether I could or I couldn't have kids.
Yeah.
And if I could, I would. And if I couldn't, I wouldn't.
So, Karen, we can say that having children is a very traditional form of expression, but obviously there are so many ways that we can express ourselves. And you express yourself through, one of the ways is through helping people express themselves through the form of speaking and really allowing their voice and their story to be heard. And so you mentor so many people with this. And so, what do you feel some of the key tips, I would guess, that you could offer to women who, if children are completely off the agenda and they're looking to express themselves in the world in a way that's really authentic for them?
Mm. Yeah, that's a really beautiful question. I think that, one of the things that we tend to do, particularly as women, we do tend to, uh, we don't tend to be as dynamically aggressive when it comes to sharing ourselves.
Yeah.
We are the ones who will usually, find a way around a situation or try and work through a situation. And sometimes we find ourselves compromised in those situations or those circumstances. And the more we do that, the more we feel inside that we're just completely, I guess, trapped inside of a body that's not expressed, that's not fulfilling its soul's greatest purpose, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. And how do you find your motivation and your passion? What is it that inspires you, that if you're feeling a bit flat ever, what are some of the ways that you really, pick yourself up again and keep moving forward in the direction that you want to go?
Well, for me, I really believe that our heart's deepest desires, and I mean, we've all had those moments where we've had really beautiful, inspiring desires that come with great enthusiasm and also a bit of nervousness.
Mm,
And it's usually when we're going in to do something or experience something we haven't done before. Really, for me, I know that by tapping into that, that really is where my motivation and inspiration comes from over and over and over again.
yeah.
And when we give ourselves the time and the space to really look inside and say, well, what is important to me now? Not for the rest of my life, because it's going to change. But
Yeah.
what's important to me in this moment? And it could be buying new shoes. It could be patting the dog. It could be doing the bass. It could be, um, you know, sharing what you know, or it could be studying. So I think it's really being willing to follow whatever is important in that moment
Mm,
to each of us, and being willing to ask the question, what's important from an internal point of view to me, rather than what does the world require of me right now? What does everybody want from me right now? And it's a very different angle to look at and then to find our answers. And when we do that looking inside, it feels so rich. It feels so intense, and it feels so intimate, and it feels so magical when we actually do follow what we want in that particular moment.
so true. And I think that's often the challenge, isn't it? That when we're so busy, busy, go, 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 trying to juggle a million things at once, it can be easy to feel confused about what's important to us and what we want, because we can feel quite conflicted by everything that's happening around us and all of the responsibilities that we've got. So it's really about, taking that time, even if it is just a few minutes, to really tap into how we feel like, and really connecting in with the wisdom of our body rather than being distracted by all the external noise, I think.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that, um, and with practice, it can just be a minute. But
Mm,
I remember when I first started when I really started this internal journey, it was really a case of me being willing to say, you know what, I'm actually going to give myself a half an hour. I'm going to give myself an hour. I'm going to give myself a day, because in the half an hour I didn't get anything. In the hour I still didn't get anything, and then in the day I started to feel a sense of loneliness and grabbing for my social media and trying to connect. And then 2 days I relaxed at the end of the 2 days, and thought, okay, well, this is about me. Let me see what's going on in me. Let me analyze my thoughts. Let me analyze how I feel. Let me question, where did all of this come from? And let me go down the rabbit hole on all of that. And I
mm,
pulled out a notepad and I thought, okay, well, let me pick any random feeling that I have felt in the last week. And I picked frustration, and I remember this so clearly. I chose frustration, and I thought, okay, so let me explore where that came from, because that was an experience that existed inside of me. So what created that? Because if it wasn't me that created that, then I'm reacting to an outside world, and I'm the one who's got to be in control of me. So
mm.
I went down the rabbit hole of exploring each of the emotions and the thoughts that I was having, and the more I did it, the more I realized I lived in a very external world. I lived in a world where things did, irritate me or frustrate me or, disappoint me or upset me. And at those, stages, I realized that if I keep focusing on this world outside of myself, then I'm very reactive.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm able to bring my attention to myself inside rather than outside, then it doesn't matter what the outside world does. I'm still the one who is proactive in what I choose to feel for the fun of it today.
Mm.
Like it's just it's a very different conversation, and I guess it's about, instead of the mind thinking us, we then become the instructor of what we want the mind to experience.
Yeah, and I mean, the mind can be a beautiful tool to
Oh,
assist us if we
yeah.
direct it, but when you let it kind of take control, it can often be a very different scenario, can't it? And it's like that saying of, do you believe that life happens to you or through you? Which I think is a really nice shift in perspective.
Oh, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely.
I'm not sure who it was that said that. It might have been the amazing Wayne Dyer, somebody like that. But I just remember reading that a few years ago, and it really sparked a different awareness in me. And I thought it's so true that we do have that choice at each moment to just take a breath and think, hang on a minute, where am I? Why am I being so reactive to this? Which, it's easier said than done sometimes. But like you said, it really does take practice, doesn't it?
And I find if you try and do it in the moment that you're most distracted or upset or irritated or whatever the situation is, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You've really got to do the work of this self-discovery when you're in a good place.
Yeah.
So that then when, stuff does hit the fan, you have the tools already prepared in your kit bag.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
true. And especially when we do have, there is so much noise. I mean, I know like you're traveling a lot for your business around the world and you're connecting with thousands of people every day and you try to juggle all sorts of things. So I think often the busier we get, the more important it is that we're quite strict around having that time just to tune out and sort of, check in with what's true for us and what our priorities are, because it doesn't seem to get any easier, but it's just really making ourselves a priority in amidst all that, isn't it?
Most definitely. And it's a shame that a person's got to get so busy and frantic before they realise who the number one player in their life actually is. If only we learned that at school.
Oh, yeah.
If only our kids learned that,
Yeah.
they wouldn't go through all of the trauma that we go through. And I honestly think that a lot of the stress and the pressure that we have on ourselves, combined with our, diet and all that sort of jazz, but I think that's got a lot to do with why people are struggling to have children these days.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It really is. I mean, there's so many factors involved in that. And, like for us, it's obviously it's not our role to be a biological mother in this lifetime. And for so many women, even if they're able to, it's not necessarily their path. And, we've all got different gifts and abilities. And I really believe that we're almost part of this new archetype or collective of women. I mean, we hear a lot about the divine feminine energy kind of coming more, rising up more into mass consciousness, the awareness around that. And I really feel that so many women are here to birth and create different things on the planet and support the mothers who do want to be mothers in the traditional sense in different ways.
Agreed.
Are you noticing this in your life, Carren, with the women that you come into contact with?
Yeah, I do. Actually, now that you're mentioning that, I do. I do see that a lot of the people that I work with are mums, and they are looking for, different input. And I guess by the time they come to me, it's about how do I find myself? Yeah. How do I reconnect back into myself so that then I've got more to offer and I'm a stronger role model for my children? Yeah. Because I think that what we've seen throughout our lifetime, certainly this generation, is that, that our kids are different. Our kids are not the same as they were 30, 40 years ago. Kids are coming in cable ready these days. So our parenting technique, if we follow the parenting technique of our parents, it's a little inadequate. That what we're finding is that, there's that inadequacy plus our own sense of inadequacy and plus mother guilt and parental guilt of never getting it right. I think that by the time people work with me, they're at the point where they just want a way through that so that then they can focus on quality rather than all of the trauma and the drama of being a parent.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you feel that we can help to narrow some of these gaps between women who are trying to raise a family and then women who have not necessarily, got that traditional setup in that way so that we can support each other in whatever our different needs and stories and circumstances are and bring more tolerance and compassion, really?
So I guess because I haven't experienced that divide between those that are mothers and those that are not mothers, I probably, I haven't had the experience in that, and I don't know what gaps necessarily exist. Certainly from what I see is that there are roles that we both play, but ultimately, we're all the same.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no difference between any of us. Yeah. And sometimes if judgment exists, then that's not about me being a mother and you not. That judgment is just simply a reflection of the judgment that exists in that person's life in every area of their life.
Yeah.
So I think, certainly I would suggest that if there is a divide, if people out there listening to this podcast are experiencing that they're being judged or that there is a divide between them and others, then I think it's important that we look at it not from the context of, well, you don't like me or you're judging me because I don't have children. Potentially there's another way to look at it in the context of, why are you judging me? And if you're judging me, you'd be judging yourself. Life must be pretty tough for you to be in that state of separation and ostracizing people who are not like you.
Yeah.
Potentially there's a sense for that person that they feel inadequate themselves. And I think we can find a way to be more compassionate rather than anything else towards those that are causing the divide, if you know what I mean.
So true. And often it's just a misunderstanding or miscommunication.
Well, of course, it couldn't be anything else, actually.
Yeah,
Because if a person really does understand the other side of the equation, then there's no necessity to make judgments because there's no story going on inside of their own heads trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
If we know the circumstances in front of us, then we don't have to figure it out. It's already figured out for us.
Yeah.
So I just think that it's just indicative more of a way of being than it is necessarily indicative of you have children, I don't, and therefore I'll judge you, hold it against you, ostracize you, whatever, whatever the situation is, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And so any last tips that you'd like to share, Carren, about how women can feel they're most empowered, some of the steps that they can take if they're at a crossroads in their life and they're really looking to step fully into what's true for them and take brave steps forward?
Yeah, first thing I would say for women, whether they're, flirting with having a family or not, I think the first thing I would say is that nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody can know what the future will reveal. All we can know is what is right and right now. And if in this moment there's the inclination to start a family, then go with that. And if it's meant to be, it will be. There are greater forces at play that beat our heart, breathe us, blink our eyes, bake a baby, and bring out the sun. There are greater forces at play in this universe. And if we're able to surrender our need to be in control, then the way that it's meant to unfold, it will unfold because we're not in control anyway. And I don't know if we've
That's right. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. We're trying to control people, ourselves, situations. It's never worked. It's not going to ever work. So I think if we can kind of let go that bit and then just, step fully into, as your words, whatever is present for us in the moment and embrace it. Don't look at it with trepidation or nervousness or anxiety and try and read the future of tomorrow and what's going to happen. We can't know. So just get into the game and keep playing the game, and what will come of that will come of that. And each step is just another step further in our growth and expansion anyway. For those that choose not to have children, well, that's amazing also, and it's another path. There are many paths in this world that we can take, and same advice. Step fully into what is present for us in the moment and participate with that and try our hardest to be in touch with the voice inside and follow the voice inside. As long as it comes with enthusiasm, you're in the right place. If it comes with fear, dread, necessity, desperation, no, then that's not the time to take action. But when that deepest desire comes with a sensation of enthusiasm and excitement and a little bit of anxiety because you're stepping into the unpredictable, then just charge ahead and don't look back.
I love that. Beautiful. And so, Carren, can you share the best place to find you online for people that want to connect with you and find out more about your work and courses and everything?
Yeah, by all means. My website is allthews.carrensmith.com, and it's CARREN. So Carren spelled CARREN, Smith, SMITH.com. And of course, I'm all over social media. I'm over Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the different platforms. You'll find me there. And I'd love to chat with everybody. I've also got a podcast show, Carren's Couch. You're welcome to tune into
You've
that.
got some great guests on there.
Yeah, well, we try to. We're on the off season at the moment. What we've decided to do is run it in series. So when we do our podcasts for a 4-month series, and then we take 2 months off, and then we do a 4-month series again. So it's just we're in the off season at the moment, which is really cool because this is where we do our bulk recordings. So it's fabulous.
Oh, well, great. Yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing your next season, and thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me on the show, Michelle. Big love to everybody out there.
Thank you for listening to Unclassified Woman. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. For information on events and services, connect with Michelle at michellemariemcgrath.com.